Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert Camo, the Fantasy Football Counselor. We're talking about 5 under the radar fantasy football running backs going into this season. Big episode, and I want you guys to have a chance to win a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey. Absolutely free to enter. Head on over to fantrax.com/FFC. That's fantrax.com/FFC. You got a chance to win a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey. And this is where I host my year-long leagues. Really customizable, everybody. You get to do actually, this is amazing because you get to do in-league polls. I mean, that's just only one of the features. Not only that, you get to actually really have that power to customize. So you could do your super flexes. You can have more value to tight ends. If you could have more yards, more receiving yards, like if your quarterback throws, you can have that value worth more. It's not so cookie cutter and structured like some of the 4-letter networks have for their year-long fantasy football platforms. Fantrax.com/FFC. Host your league there. But once you guys sign up for free, again, you're entered automatically either way for a signed Christian McCaffrey jersey giveaway. Also, guys, I am hosting a best ball league as well there. So once you guys sign up, DM me, I'm in on Instagram, and I will get you guys a link to the best ball league. There's about $1,000 worth of prizes there. Fantrax.com/FFC, the place to host your year-long leagues. That's where I host it. Love it. Check it out, okay? Number 2, guys, get the 16-round drafts, which is the first ever and only video training. This is going to help you guys crush your league. Link below. And, of course, manscape.com. Treat yourself. Get the Lawnmower 3.0 or 4.0 at manscape.com and save yourself 20% by using the promo code SHOWERLION. So that's it, guys. There you have it. SHOWERLION. Save yourself 20%. Okay. So let's get into this. Let's talk about these 5 running backs that are under the radar. Of course, guys, smash a thumbs up and let me know in the comments below. I want you guys to interact. Let me know in the comments below which running back you think is under the radar, okay? Now, these are running backs that, I was going to say sleepers, but I'm going to do a whole other sleeper episode. This is just guys that people just forget about, don't talk about. And I say, well, Joe, I do think about that guy, but the average person doesn't. They're going to be drafting the running back ahead of them. I'm going to explain why these running backs could potentially do better than the running backs ahead of them, behind them, whatever it may be, okay? All right, so the first guy that's under the radar here, which is crazy, is Javonte Williams. Now, he's currently sitting about 30th, 32nd on the consensus rankings, consensus. I call him consensus if you guys are new to the channel. Now, here's the deal with Javonte Williams. He can and will be a workhorse. Now, 157 yards last year in college, over 1,000 yards, 1,140 yards, 7.3 yards per carry, 19 touchdowns, and he got a little bit of work in the passing game. 25 receptions with 3 touchdowns, about 300 yards. Now, that isn't huge in the passing game, but it's pretty sustainable. The guy can catch the ball, okay? He'll do well. Now, reading some reports on him. Now, first of all, he's going to the Denver Broncos in a situation where he's primed to be the workhorse running back. And here's the thing. A lot of people think are going to be drafting Melvin Gordon ahead of him, and I understand because he's slated to be the RB1. But the Broncos have a different agenda. They drafted this guy in the 2nd round, 35th overall, for a reason. It's because they want that workhorse running back. I remember they wanted to have Royce Freeman to be that back. Clearly that didn't work out. I remember Elway talking to Royce Freeman saying, yeah, we need that power back. I think you're the guy. Wasn't the case, right? So I think Javonte Williams can fill that role. He's got a good mix of power and speed. Now, his only knock really is that his long end speed, right? So when he's on that long run, he doesn't reach the top end speed as some other potential, like other running backs can hit, right? So Javonte Williams lacks that really fast speed, on the long runs. But overall, man, quick off the line, power, breaks tackles really well. He's a power back, and he's got really good athleticism. And again, he can get it done not only in the running game, right, but also in the passing game. So I'm excited for this guy to eventually take the role. And again, I'm getting him as value. He's literally like my RB4 on my roster. So if I get him as an RB4, sure, because I'm going robust RB, right? I'm gonna do that any chance I can get. Love him, and I think he's gonna take that starting job. Okay, number 2 here. This one's an interesting one, and he's kind of fallen off the radar, is James Robinson. Now, I want to talk a little bit about James Robinson here and why I think he's under the radar. And I totally understand why he's under the radar. I mean, they invested, a first-round pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars in Travis Etienne. And, you hear the coaches say, oh, he's just going to be involved in the passing game. Oh, he's just there for Trevor Lawrence. He's a comfort thing. But, similarly, you may think like the Denver Broncos, like, hey, man, like this guy's going to take the starting role over James Robinson, this and that. James Robinson was an undrafted free agent running back, and he killed it. He finished 7th in fantasy points last year, 240 attempts, 1,070 yards, and he did well. I think 4.5 yards per carry and 7 touchdowns. He's a guy that did it, and I thought, and a lot of people thought, I think all the Jacksonville players as well thought that, James Robinson's their guy. They found their solution. He's the guy. Then drafting the ATN thing, that was a big shocker, right? So a lot of the fantasy community is saying, okay, well, they drafted ATN. He's the guy. But I think this is reverse. Stick with me here. A lot of people sleeping on, here's the funny thing. A lot of people sleeping on Javonte Williams thinking Melvin Gordon's the guy, but a lot of people taking ATN thinking James Robinson's not the guy. I think this is going to reverse. I think Javonte Williams and James Robinson still could be the guys. I think James Robinson still could be the guy. Am I going to draft him as my RB1 or 2? No. But if I'm going robust RB, I can get him as my RB4. That's a steal because he still could be and should be slated as the starter theoretically, right? Because again, he performed really well. But again, the mainstream are putting Travis Etienne ahead of him, and they're putting Melvin Gordon ahead of Javonte Williams. So this is a really, really interesting scenario that you should observe because you can get both Javonte Williams and James Robinson for immense value, and both those guys could and should theoretically, based on the projections that I'm laying out here and the scenario, should be the RB1s on those respective teams. Again, Melvin Gordon, years to Wallace were not wild, 1,000-yard rushing season, and there's a reason they drafted Javonte Williams. Now, you could say the same thing with James Robinson. Well, Joe, James Robinson's an undrafted free agent running back. He had one good year, yeah, but they're looking for that true workhorse running back in ATN. I'm going to say no because James Robinson's still young, and he did so well the first year. He still has a high ceiling to grow, as Melvin Gordon, we've kind of seen what he can do. He's on a downwards trend. So I think there's more excitement and more upside with James Robinson than there is Melvin Gordon. So the bottom line here is, guys, you got to think outside the box. You got to look at the scenario, and it's a very interesting scenario here, but I think Javonte Williams and James Robinson will be the guys that prevail as the RB1, and they're the guys that are better value right now, hence why they're under the radar. Does this make sense, guys? I'd love to get your feedback if this is making sense. If I'm talking out of my ass, you're like, Joe, I don't really agree with you. I like to hear it, but I really believe what I'm saying here is true. And again, if I'm wrong, you're not investing a huge amount of capital on these guys. You're still going to get them for immense value as your RB3-4 on your roster. So it's kind of a win-win. You're getting them for value, and if they don't do as well, they're still going to get some volume, okay? So 5 running backs under the radar. Those are your first 2, Williams and James Robinson. Number 3 here, a lot of people talking about him. There's some buzz around him, and it's Michael Carter. Michael Carter is in a situation where he's going to succeed. Now, his college numbers look pretty good. 156 attempts, 1,245 yards, 9 touchdowns, 8 yards per carry. Pretty good numbers coming out of college, and he can receive the ball. He can catch the ball. What's so interesting about Michael Carter is that it's going to be a new offense. It's going to be a young offense. It's going to be a young new quarterback, and there's no running back there. I mean, you can look at guys like Coleman and P. Ryan and Ty Johnson or whatever his name is. These guys are bottom feeders. They're not guys that are going to get it done. They're not good running backs. Years to wow us, we're not wowed, or year or whatever, how long. Nobody cares what these guys are. They're not even fantasy relevant. Yeah, they may have a role if Michael Carter doesn't do as well as projected, but Michael Carter in a position that he could be the starting running back on this offense. And it's super exciting to see a young quarterback that I can get for immense value here. And again, I'm paying literally nothing for him. So Michael Carter, another guy that's a little bit under the radar, RB3 or 4. And again, the guys I'm mentioning here, they're not going to be your starters. So don't say, well, Joe, they're under the radar. You told me, yes, but you're not going to be paying round 1, round 2, round 3, maybe not even round 4, round 5 for some of these guys, and you're still going to get them, okay? Michael Carter's ADP is sliding up a little bit, but that's besides the point. They're still under the radar, okay? Number 4, Kareem Hunt. Now, a lot of people all over the Nick Chubb train, understandably so, because he came back from injury last year or whatever. He was banged up, 4 games? He played 12 games last year. He was banged up for most of the season either way, and he still managed to rush for over 1,000 yards, 190 attempts, 12 touchdowns on the ground. And it's like, okay, let's go for Kareem Hunt or Nick Chubb in the first round. But you're forgetting about Kareem Hunt, who's my number 4 here, currently sitting 22nd amongst running backs in the consensus rankings. And I only reference the consensus rankings because that's what not to do, right? So when I that's kind of how I gauge things, right? When I'm in my fan tracks or I'm in my whatever league, that's how rankings are kind of guided. It's kind of like based on ADP in these magazines. They come up with this consensus, which is total BS, and that's kind of how I gauge things. But Kareem Hunt is sitting around 22nd. This is a guy that outscored Nick Chubb when they played together, in games that they played together. If you add up all those games over the 2 seasons they played together, now Kareem Hunt in 2019 played only about 8 games, but when you put the games together, Kareem Hunt always outscores. If you add up the numbers, Kareem Hunt outscores Nick Chubb in PPR numbers over those 2 years. Now, Kareem Hunt, 198 attempts, 891 yards, 6 touchdowns on the ground, and heavily involved in the passing game with 51 targets, okay? So, and 5 receiving touchdowns, that is. Nick Chubb not as involved in the receiving game with 18 targets compared to the 51 targets Kareem Hunt had. So here's the deal. Nick Chubb could have a great season, but if I'm looking at a guy in the first round, early second, right? If I'm considering this guy as my RB1, which a lot of people are doing the consensus that consensus do, if I'm considering Nick Chubb to be my one, I want a full workhorse running back that I can get that's going to also be involved in the passing game, with the exception of a guy like Derrick Henry, who makes it up completely in attempts that he doesn't have a Kareem Hunt breathing down his neck. I get that as a first-round pick, but when you're looking at Nick Chubb, you got a guy who's equally as good, probably even better running back overall. If you guys forget, because everybody buys the recency bias, Kareem Hunt was actually the league's rushing leader with KC back in, I believe, 2017. Kareem Hunt is no slouch. He's a good running back, and he's going to be stealing a lot of volume, a lot of attempts, and a lot of that receiving game, right? So, receiving targets. So, when I look at Kareem Hunt, I still think of him as a guy that I can get as my RB4, and I don't have to pay Kareem Hunt or Nick Chubb prices. I can get a guy that could outperform Nick Chubb in PPR. So that's why he's under the radar, because everybody's so focused on Nick Chubb in round 1 that they're forgetting that Kareem Hunt has outscored him in PPR 2 years in a row in the games they've played together. So it's a very important thing to consider if you are considering drafting Nick Chubb, and that reason alone, the Kareem Hunt being there is going to be why I'm going to stay away from, again, completely stay away from Nick Chubb, okay? Number 5 here. Now, this is interesting. A lot of people not talking about this, but I'm not really sold on Aaron Jones. So the guy at number 5 is A.J. Dillon for many reasons. Number 1, he's a workhorse running back. He's built. He's got quads of steel. I mean, you got to look at the talent, right? The guy is talented. Now, he didn't get much volume last year. He got like 46 attempts, 5.3 yards per carry. Now, here's the interesting thing here, okay? 46 attempts in his rookie year, didn't really get going. Aaron Jones only had 201 attempts. That's not enough. And again, you're spending a second-round pick on Aaron Jones. He's probably a top 10. What is it? Top 10 on the consensus? Aaron Jones is a guy that, again, I like him as a person, good work ethic, this and that. But when we look at A.J. Dillon, he's going to emerge. And another main reason that people are forgetting is that Jamal Williams is there. And people aren't talking about this, but there's 119 attempts to be had. Based on last year, Jamal Williams had 119 rushing attempts. He's gone. Who's going to get those, right? It's going to be A.J. Dillon. So I'm looking at a floor. And I'm going to be really, really, holding back on this, really conservative on this, okay? I'm looking at a floor. And I know you're saying, well, Joe, that's not a lot of attempts. But I'm looking at a floor of 115 to 120 attempts. Predicated on the fact that I saw 46 last year and 119 are freed up. You can get 150 attempts. Now, if Aaron Jones gets hurt, and he's shown some injuries before, if Aaron Jones gets hurt, I mean, you're looking at a full workhorse running back. So A.J. Dillon, a guy who's currently sitting 37th on the consensus rankings, you can literally get as your RB4 for free. I mean, it's a steal. He's completely under the radar, and a guy that could potentially take that starting job if either Aaron Jones gets hurt. And either way, I think he's going to be integrated a lot more, because I think he's the future running back of the Green Bay Packers, okay? So I'm super excited about Dillon. I think the ceiling is going to be obviously limited due to Aaron Jones, but again, immense value and completely under the radar, okay? So 5 running backs. You can call them Fantasy Football running back sleepers. I like to call them under the radar for this episode, but you're talking Javonte Williams, James Robinson, Michael Carter, Kareem Hunt, and A.J. Dillon. And again, this is going to be very interesting to see, how these guys do, because there's a ton of ceiling on some of these guys, and you're getting them for immense value, okay? It's all about value for these guys. Now, typically, I don't go value. I go robust RB. I get those running backs early. But if I'm looking at a running back, these are 5 guys I definitely consider after I've done my robust RB strategy. Okay, guys? Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Smash thumbs up, subscribe. We got more amazing episodes coming your way. Fantasy football is around the corner, guys, and I'm out. We'll talk soon.